Jimmy Kimmel's so-called apology for his remarks, following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, exemplifies the profound cultural capture of the progressive establishment, a phenomenon that has undergone countless rebrandings over the decades, yet clings tenaciously to its core ideological imperatives. What began as American communists lavishly funded by the Soviet Union and all too willing to betray their nation's military secrets to a foreign power shrewdly reinvented themselves in the 1950s as innocuous progressives. This was no mere cosmetic change. It marked the opening salvo in a calculated, patient campaign to infiltrate and dominate not just American institutions, but the very foundations of Western civilization itself. Through the ensuing generations, these ideological descendants have shape-shifted with remarkable adaptability, morphing from Cold War-era fellow travelers into the architects of what can only be described as a queer race Marxism, a toxic fusion of identity politics, grievance culture, and unyielding fealty to an elite progressive dogma that brooks no dissent. Jimmy Kimmel, that polished emblem of late-night entertainment, stands as a stark illustration of this capture. His tearful monologue upon returning to the airwaves, delivered amid accusations of crocodile tears, and a single perfunctory mention of the Kirk family, reeked of performative contrition, a scripted bid to salve the wounds of his own inflammatory words without ever truly reckoning with them. He claimed to have posted a message of compassion on Instagram in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, insisting he meant every word then and now. Yet, as critics from Turning Point USA rightly pointed out, this rang hollow. Where was the direct apology to the family for the lies and distortions that preceded it? Where was the humility in the face of a movement he and his cohort have spent years caricaturing as dangerous extremists? Kimmel is far from alone in this surrender to the cult's members, zombified adherents enthralled to its imperatives, will twist facts, fabricate narratives, and peddle outright falsehoods to safeguard the faith. They have burrowed deep into the sinews of power, education, where universities churn out generations indoctrinated in victimhood and cancel culture, entertainment, where Hollywood's gatekeepers elevate vapid influences into moral arbiters while blacklisting any voice that dares question the orthodoxy, and elite institutions across the board, from corporate boardrooms to bureaucratic fiefdoms, all now echoing the same monotonous hymn of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a veil for authoritarian control, this is no accident of history, but the fruition of a long march, a deliberate strategy to erode the Enlightenment values of reason, individualism, and free inquiry that once defined the West. The old Bolsheviks dreamed of proletarian revolution. Their heirs now pursue it through the subtle weapons of social engineering, where tolerance means enforced conformity and progress demands the erasure of inconvenient truths. They lionize the most narcissistic, destructive figures as folk heroes, be it the race-baiting agitator or the gender-fluid ideologue, while demonizing patriots like Kirk, who dared to rally against the tide of decay. In Kimmel's case, his initial glee-tinged commentary on the assassination gave way to this belated, stage-managed remorse only under the glare of public backlash, a classic maneuver to preserve the brand while doubling down on the underlying contempt. Make no mistake, these are not debaters seeking the marketplace of ideas. They crave obedience, absolute and unquestioning, enforced through shame, deplatforming, and the constant threat of social excommunication. The truth, laid bare in moments like this farce of an apology, is that we find ourselves in a resistance, not against some abstract system, but against the pod people who have infiltrated our cultural bloodstream, urging us to think, speak, and behave in lockstep with their hive mind. The struggle is as real today as it was in the shadow of the Red Scare or the upheavals of the Nuntungsstup's counterculture, when the same forces cloak their radicalism in the garb of liberation. Normal, rational people, those who still prize evidence over emotion, liberty over license, must rise to reclaim the institutions that have been hijacked. It demands vigilance, calling out the insincerity in every half-hearted mea culpa, supporting the voices silenced by the mob, and rebuilding from the ground up with unapologetic commitment to truth and merit. The West's survival hangs in the balance, not on the whims of late-night hosts or their scripted tears, but on our collective will to resist the assimilation. The pod people may control the microphones for now, but the human spirit endures, and it will prevail.